Welcome back to the Gutsy Chick podcast. Today's episode is about space weather and body shenanigans for September of 2025. So if you're listening to this a little later, it's cool to hear, because in this episode, I'm actually going to share where I get the information that gives us these predictions, explain a little bit about these organizations that I'm using to gather the data, and then a little bit about these body shenanigans that I'm sharing and why specifically we need to pay attention to this stuff. There was a Facebook post today, and they referenced the website spaceweather.com, which is a fantastic website to go to if you want to see what's going on currently. On the website, there's a scientific article about how the space weather affects our body. And I was going, woo woo, I love this. Can't believe these things are showing up now in my life as I am starting to do this portion of the podcast, the space weather and body shenanigans. So when it comes to space weather, what I'm talking about is solar activity and the forecast for that solar activity. I'm talking about our moon cycles. I'm talking about astrology, because it does kind of play into this, and I know a lot of people are paying attention to that. And I'm also talking about volcanic activity, earthquakes, tsunamis, and hurricanes. All of these things that are happening on our planet are actually influenced by space weather. In fact, it's the trigger that sets off some of these things. Now, it's not the cause of these things, but it's like somebody went boop, tapped you on the nose, and whammo, all of a sudden we have this activity. And when it comes to the solar activity, we're in a solar maximum. There's a solar minima and there's a solar maxima. We're in a solar maxima, which means that the sun has a lot of activity going on. There's a bunch of sunspots, and those sunspots can burst like a zit and send solar flares toward us, solar winds toward us, and create a little chaos in our electromagnetic sphere on planet. When that electromagnetic sphere gets disrupted, this is when we start to see things like volcanoes go off and tsunamis happen and earthquakes. It's really more to do with volcanoes and earthquakes that the solar activity boops our electromagnetic sphere, and all of a sudden those two things get set off, and then those trigger tsunamis, and then we've got hurricanes going at the same time, which this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere, hurricanes are prevalent. Usually around mid-August to October, we have our most hurricanes in the Northern Hemisphere. And then in the Southern Hemisphere, cyclone season starts in November. So when we get to November, I'll definitely be giving you guys a heads up. What do you need to be doing for your body during this time? So, space weather. Here's what's happening. Here's the predictions for September of 2025. And these come from NOAA. For those of you who aren't familiar with NOAA, NOAA is all things oceans, weather, climate, and space weather. NOAA stands for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. A couple of parent agencies under NOAA: the National Weather Service, the NESDIS, which is the satellite division, and then the SWPC, which is Space Weather Prediction Center, and that's where I'm getting my solar activity. The 27-day look ahead comes from that. I will be using that for this. And then I also use what's called, what is it called? The predicted sunspot number and radio flux, which basically predicts what's going to happen for this entire cycle of solar maxima, which this solar maxima, what's interesting to note about the solar maxima is they expected it to end in March of 2025. It started in November 2024. They expected it to end in March of 2025. Here we are. Recording date is August. I'm predicting for September, and we're still in the maxima. In fact, they now predict, I should say, that this solar maxima will continue through, it's either March or May. March of 2026. Yeah. So didn't nail that one. We're currently in solar cycle 25, and this solar cycle is it's showing us that there's on average about 115 sunspots. So 115 opportunities for one of those little zits to pop and head toward us. August and September are very similar to each other in the number of solar flares, auroral activities, and solar winds. They're pretty much the same. We're seeing the same kind of energy coming our way. The dates to pay attention to, though, right now on the 27-day look ahead, the dates to look to are September 4th through September 10th. That is a big window for some solar activity. And the height of that solar activity is going to be on September 5th. That's what the prediction is currently. And of course, on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, I'm keeping you up to date week to week on what's going on in the weather activity and what to expect. In fact, I just did one last week where some people might be experiencing some upset tummies and some evacuations, if you will. It's kind of a shitty situation, if you know what I mean. That was from a solar storm. That was a G1 storm. It was very low grade. It lasted 2 days, but those 2 days started to accumulate in some people's bodies, and it presented with some upset tummies. And my solution for that was magnesium. Take an Epsom salt bath. Do some salt ceremonies. Get your pinky in some sea salt, some really high grade, high mineral count sea salt. Stick that in your mouth and think happy thoughts. That's a salt ceremony. You can also hear that on the episode 64 with Linda Yesperu. We talk about that because we did a ton of those in Hawaii and then again at immersion. Yeah, I love doing salt ceremonies. I do like 3 to 4 a day because that's what my body needs right now. And when we're in a solar maxima, your body might need it too. September 4th through the 10th, though, your body is probably going to accumulate some crud. I'll catch you up on what to do about that at the end of this episode. So stick around so you know what in the world to do with all these body shenanigans and how to help yourself before it gets out of hand. Because there's a bunch of things that are going to tie together. So next up, the moons. We've got a lot of fun moon activity happening in September. We have a full moon on September 7th. During the full moon, this is the time to let go, release. And this particular full moon, let's see, astrologically, that full moon is Pisces. It's a Pisces full moon, a little fishy. It's an opportunity for emotional insights and healing through introspection. Yeah, it's also a lunar eclipse. How fun. Now, the lunar eclipse is supposed to last 82 minutes. That's a long lunar eclipse. It's best visible in East Africa, Asia, and Australia, possibly morning or evening local time, depending on your location. It's not happening here in the Northern Hemisphere. In the United States, not the Northern Hemisphere. So get ready for a big full moon September 7th. And then we have a new moon on September 21st. Falls into the zodiac. of Virgo. This one is also has on that same day a partial solar eclipse. That partial solar eclipse is an 85% obstruction, and it's visible primarily across Oceania and Antarctica. Maximum coverage is in southern New Zealand and Stewart Islands on the morning of September 22nd local time. If you're in New Zealand, and I know I have several listeners in New Zealand, go check out that solar eclipse that happens on a new moon. They usually come together. It also happens to be the spring equinox in the southern hemisphere. Spring is about renewal, rebirth, regeneration. So prepare yourself for gentleness in your digestion. In the northern hemisphere, during that new moon, we will be going through the fall equinox. This is about death. We're headed into our death cycle, our yearly death cycle. And it's about releasing, harvesting. That's my favorite. Harvest knowledge, harvest food during that time. This is harvest season. Fall is by far my favorite season of the year. I am a big fan of Halloween, and I'm also morbidly curious about all of the different religions and what they practice when it comes to this time of the year. But we've got a fall equinox or the spring equinox happening on the new moon, which happens to be in Virgo, and there's a solar eclipse. That's a lot going on for our bodies. I'll get there. Let's look at what's happening the month of, I should say from August 22nd to September 22nd. This is Virgo season. Virgo season highlights habit formation, self-reflection, structure, ritual, and routine. Those are the things to be paying attention to in the month of September up to September 22nd, which again is that new moon, solar eclipse, fall equinox, spring equinox. Whew, a lot going on. All right, let's check out what's going on Earthside. Volcanic activity, earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes. We got them all. So from a volcanic activity perspective, the axial sea mount is very, very active right now. It isn't predicted to create any chaos for anyone. This is just off the coast of Oregon here in the United States. There's no immediate hazards, but what this gives NOAA and other people who are paying attention to what's going on volcanically is a way to refine eruption forecasting techniques. That's a big deal. This volcano is underwater, 4,900 feet underwater. So it's bubbling up like Hawaii once did. But it's giving us a phenomenal opportunity to do some science, find out if there are better ways to predict volcanic eruptions, and techniques for that type of forecasting. That's a big deal. Mount Spur has been a big topic lately. This is a volcano in Alaska. It has recently been downgraded to a normal alert level. It was on high, and eruption risk is now considered extremely low. That's great news for a lot of Alaska and Canada. And then there's the I'll be able to say this, I promise. Canlaon volcano, which is in the Philippines. It remains active, having produced significant eruptions early in 2025, most recently in April and May. There's no new activity reported for September, but the volcano remains one to watch. Probably one to watch right around that September 4th through 10th timeframe. In September, there are no significant things to pay attention to when it comes to earthquakes and tsunamis. It is, however, National Preparedness Month in the United States. That's promoting earthquake awareness and early warning systems, which again, that's part of NOAA. Okay. There is speculation that there's going to be heightened seismic activity in certain regions, but there's no scientifically verified data to back that up. That is astrologically based. So just know astrology is predicting some things for us, and it happens to be in September. Heightened seismic activity, which means more earthquakes. September, as I mentioned, is the height of the Atlantic hurricane season. Here's the predictions coming out for this. There's projected to be, according to NOAA, between 13 to 19 named storms. Those could be tropical storms and hurricanes. With those, there's supposed to be between 6 to 10 that will become hurricanes. And then 2 to 5 of those will become major hurricanes, which is a category 3 to 5. 3 being in the middle, 5 being at the highest end. And then Colorado State University also backed all of these numbers up. In fact, they came in right in the middle of all those numbers. They're predicting 17 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes, which is smack dab in the middle of what NOAA came up with. Thank you, Colorado State University. You are near and dear. All right. So what in the world do we do with all this information? If you live in an area where hurricanes, earthquakes, or volcanic activity are high, your stress is probably a little higher, potentially. Or you're already used to it, but your nervous system is still going to respond. So, what are some great things to do relative to those kinds of earthly weather that we generally have a warning system in place so that we know it's coming? It could affect our area. We breathe. One of my favorite breathing practices is box breathing, where you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, and then repeat. And there's some really cool videos that you can look at while you're doing that breath work so that you can stay focused on doing it. Or you can set a cool little timer. There's also those where it's 4, 4, 4. You can also extend that breath out if you like, 8, 8, 8, and 8. This breathing pattern where we're holding helps us focus our attention. My other favorite for breathing practices is the 4-4-2-4 breath. That breath is about longer exhale than inhale. This drops us into a parasympathetic state, that rest digest state in our nervous system automagically. Getting to that rest digest and practicing that breath allows our nervous system to calm quickly. And if we're good at practicing it, then when we need to engage that 4-4-2-4 breath, we're going into quick rest digest recovery state. So it's worth practicing if you're in those areas and you know you might be faced with having to deal with a hurricane, an earthquake, a tsunami, or volcanic activity. When it comes to the space weather, the solar activity forecast, you now know September 4th through the 10th, the solar activity will be higher. The Earth will probably get hit with some solar activity, some solar winds, some solar flares, some CMEs, and our body does feel it. We're probably not conscious that we are feeling it, but now that you're listening to this podcast, guess what? You're conscious. Welcome. This kind of activity Most of those storms will be in the G1 level, which is a very low level, not going to have auroras that reach very deep into the United States or into close to the equator, closer to the equator. I don't know that any has ever made it to the equator. But that weather has residual impact on us. Do your Epsom salt baths during that time. That is my favorite, relaxing, easy way to drop in and release some of that tension building up in our body that we might not realize has been happening all these years. During this time, we actually do see a spike similar to what we saw in early August, where G2 storm, G3 storm might pop in. We might even see an M level storm. If that happens, let's get prepared. Some of the things that we can do during that time, one of my favorites is to do a cross-body tapping. If you've ever tried EMDR, what we're doing here is we're activating both sides of the brain, and we're allowing the body and the brain to go into that rest digest place once again, bringing our stress back down. And during those days from September 4th through the 10th, if we engage that, and if you're paying attention to my live videos on YouTube, you'll also know what day specifically to pay attention to. Current prediction is, I said it earlier, either the 5th or the 6th. Let me pull that data back up so we can see that. The height will be on the 5th, current prediction. So get to tapping, get to practicing this, and get your body into a rhythm of doing this. And you can tap fast if you want, or you can tap slow and deliberate. Totally up to you on what rhythm you want your body moving to. I personally love this one. This one's my favorite. And because we're crossing our arms across our chest, we're giving ourselves a little compressive hug through center. Also helps us calm down. It's like getting a hug from a friend. That's my tip for you on helping yourself during this wild ride that we're going to be on. And then, cumulatively speaking, on the 7th, we have the full moon, big release, let go, and focus in during that time on, back to my notes, the full moon relative to astrology. That one's in Pisces, and an opportunity for emotional insights and healing through introspection. Get a journal out and start journaling. And during those big solar fun times, track your dreams. Many of my clients reach out to me during those times and they're like, my dreams have been absolutely wild. What is going on? That's a glimpse into your subconscious. That's a glimpse into you needing to write down these dreams and maybe getting some counsel on dream work. That's something that Maria Yesburu helps her people with. You can check out her episode. It came out last week. That is episode 81. Okay. So you've got a little bit of work to do in September. Once a week, we should be looking at those solar activity, solar kick-ups, those little zits being popped, headed our way, disrupting our electromagnetic system that surrounds our Earth and protects us and keeps us safe from those CMEs and, well, helps us have gravity and oxygen and makes our planet what it is. All right. That's all I'm going to share now for September. Tune into my lives once a week. I usually do them on Wednesdays, and then if you don't catch them on Wednesday, they go out in my social media on Friday, so you know what's going on from week to week. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Stay gutsy. Yay! You made it to the end of the episode. Good job. Now, go share this with your friends. Go like, subscribe, leave me a review. Let me know that you like what's happening here on the Gutsy Chick podcast. And if you're a female high performer with mysterious chronic health condition, go check out the Gutsy Chick Quiz so you can find out what might be holding you back from healing. And if you want more on what I do with my clients and my blog and any podcasts that I've been a guest on, go to bodywhisperhealing.com. Thanks for listening.